Reverend Maxwell, welcome back for the sixth part of the interview.
Okay.
Do you consider yourself a pessimist?
Do I think of myself?
Are you optimistic or pessimistic?
Yeah. Well, when I understand now. I hate to say this, but you asked me a question, so I'll have to answer it. But I'm not optimistic at all. No. But I suspect that there might be, I don't know for sure, but I think there might be some hope for the human race. But if there is, it will not come from this earth. There will be no, in my opinion, I've only been looking at this subject of the history of the world and how the world works, etc. I've only been really doing this for almost 60 years, looking at these subjects of banking and commerce and government, religion, politics, etc. And so after 60 years of really studying these subjects over and over and traveling all over the world and talking to people and doing research in many different countries of the world and looking at and also being intellectually honest. That's something lots of people are not. I try to be intellectually honest. If it's true, I want to admit it's true. And I don't feel like making a situation seem better than it is. I don't want to make it seem worse than it is, but not better than it is. But in all honesty, after looking at the world and studying it for as many years as I have, I started back in 1959. That's about 56 years ago, when I began to really start studying the way the world works. So for 56 years, that's all I've been doing, is looking at behind the scenes, how governments work, how commerce and banks work, and where do religions come from, and how the world actually works. And so very few people know what I'm talking about, but I've been doing this for almost 6 decades. And so in answer to your question, am I optimistic? No, I am not optimistic. I'm very afraid that the human race, not just America, not just North America and Canada, but the whole entire human family on Earth, are not sufficiently educated to the whole picture of who we are as humans and where we've come from and how did we get here. And of course all of the dark secrets about government and political powers in the world, and the ancient history of the earth. Way too many people are just not aware of any of the really dark ancient truths, and I'm sure that one of the main reasons why people aren't is because they're too busy living their lives to think about what this earth was like 3 million years ago, or 300 million years ago, or what it will be like 500,000 years from today. But those are the kind of thoughts I entertain continually. And I do research, and I've talked to scientists and physicists and astronauts and clergymen and politicians and all kinds of people all around the world on all kinds of subjects. And so the bottom line is that after all these years of traveling, I'm not very I'm not very optimistic at all. However, having said that, there is at least a possibility that there is a higher force in the universe that we humans call God. I don't know what God is, but I know what it isn't. God is not on TV, is not on radio. God is not in churches or in synagogues or in mosques. So how would I say? God, to me, God is dog spelled backwards. And so when you talk about optimistic about the human family, you have to understand who are we as the human family? Where did we come from? And go back into our history and look at all the things that you've never heard before. And look at all of the ancient things that we do know, that some people do know, but most people don't know. And you'll begin to see what I'm talking about when I say I'm very pessimistic about our future. Not America, but the whole human race. I am totally convinced, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that there are other life forms on this earth highly intelligent, far more intelligent than we humans, and that they are here and have been here for God knows how long. I've said this to you before, but I think it bears witness again, that we find artifacts, handmade artifacts, found in the earth. They're called, if you want to look them up on the web, look up the word on the web, go to the web and go to image, where it's nothing but pictures. Go to image on the web and type in the word out, O-U-T, out of place, P-L-A-C-E, out of place, artifacts. Type in the word in image, out of place artifacts. And then you will see what I'm talking about. The thousands of strange things that have been found in this world that we know go back millions of years, with strange artifacts, handmade artifacts that have been found in the earth by mining companies when they go way down into the earth, mining, and go down thousands and thousands and thousands of feet and to strata, into the strata. That far down, the strata is 3.5 to 4 billion years old if you go down far enough. And we humans have drilled mines, especially in Africa and Central and South Africa in particular. There are mines that go down miles and miles and miles down. And even at that depth in the earth, it's in strata, which all scientists and paleontologists will agree that at that far down, the ground is at least 3.5 to 4 billion with a B, 4 billion years old. Strata that far down in the earth. And yet, the miners are finding handmade jewelry, handmade artifacts, strange and beautiful trinkets and all kinds of strange things made by hand, and writing and pictures on them that we don't understand. We're finding things in the ocean. When we drill for oil, we go down into the ocean and drill down beneath the floor of the ocean, thousands of feet down below the floor of the ocean. And we're bringing up handmade artifacts. It doesn't take an astronaut or a brain surgeon to think and figure out, if you're going down that far down into the earth, where all paleontologists and all geologists will tell you that at that depth in the earth is 3.5 to 4 billion years old, and you are finding handmade artifacts trinkets and bracelets and all kinds of strange things made by hand that tells you that somebody was on this earth 3.5 to 4 billion years ago. And they knew how to work metals. They knew how to work with gold and silver and metals. They knew how to carve. It was a phenomenal. Some of the things that have been found, which are extraordinarily ancient and brilliant things which have been found, which prove that the earth is far, far more older than you think it is. And I don't want to say humans, because I don't think there were humans. But there was intelligent life, actually highly intelligent life on this earth 3.5 to 4 billion years ago. And that's a fact. If you go down, if you see all the handmade artifacts that have been brought up, and so many of those artifacts are on metals or rocks, stones, which are heavy, big stones which have been carved with minute accuracy, just an extraordinary display of brilliant handworking and artifacts that are found in the earth, way, way down. And so there's no doubt in my mind that intelligent life, I'm not sure they were human like us, but intelligent life has been on this earth, and the earth has gone through many, many chaotic catastrophes and destruction. If you just look at the mountains around the world, you will see the strata in the mountains going straight up. Well, they used to be laying down, but something happened, so it caused the mountains and built up huge mountains like Mount Everest. Whatever caused Mount Everest, it was flat at one time, and now it's miles high. So what I'm saying is that I'm not very optimistic about the human family, because we really don't understand our history. We don't know who we are. We don't know who made us, where we came from. And most of us listen to religious leaders who know less than you do, and yet they are out pontificating and telling everyone what the real truth about God is, when in point of fact they have no idea in the world any more than I do or you do. And so I think the worst thing that we have done is trusted our leaders to tell us the truth, when in point of fact they don't know what the truth is. And if they do know, they're not going to tell you anyway. So I think in order to be optimistic, we would have to be a lot more educated, intellectually enlightened, and intellectually honest. If there was going to be any hope for us as a human family, as the human race. I don't see very much intellectual honesty in the world today. In the highly developed countries like Canada and America and Australia and New Zealand, intellectual honesty is almost non-existent. People are not intellectually honest about much of anything. They believe anything they want to believe, and they think anything they want to think, and they listen to their preachers and clergymen and their politicians and scientists, and never for a moment realize that these people are just being paid salaries to tell you what you want to hear. So, so that's the bottom line. As far as I'm concerned, any light at the end of the tunnel is a train coming. I don't believe the human race has what it takes to extricate itself or to get out of the ignorance, the stupidity, the backward, the silly nonsense that we live as humans. I don't think we have what it takes to really look at the world for what it really is and where we've actually come from, and be able to save our human family on the earth. I don't think we have that ability. I think we're too ignorant. ill-informed, unread, and too propagandized by organizations around us that tell us all kinds of lies, and then they feed us alcohol and drugs and entertainment. So I'm just giving you a general overall picture of why I say I'm not impressed with the future of the human race, because the people have no power around the world. People have no power to do anything. And the reason why is because knowledge is power. And the people have no knowledge. I mean, even the scripture says that. In the Old Testament, God says in the Old Testament, my people are dying from a lack of knowledge. My people have no knowledge of what's going on, and therefore they're being used, they're being played for fools, they're being tricked and deceived. I mean, the human family is like a child. We're very childlike. We believe, we believe that our leaders care about us and care about our country, and never realize for a moment that the people in power today don't care about you. Banks don't loan money. That's against the law for a bank to loan money. But people say, well, I've got to borrow money from the bank. You can't borrow money from a bank. Banks don't loan money. People don't understand how a bank works. So again, until you understand how the world works, there's not going to be any hope for the human family. This is what I do. I continually try to educate people little by little, hoping that one day people will begin to wake up from their lethargic sleep and start realizing how much they've been lied to, how much of what they believe is not true, and maybe if enough people wake up and get the message, maybe there's be some hope for the human family. But the most important thing that we really need to perfect ourselves in is to be intellectually honest. People will see things they don't want to see, and they will act like they didn't see it, and they will act like they didn't hear something that they didn't want to hear, and go on about their life. Well, then what you're doing is, like the scripture says, the Bible has Jesus saying, you have eyes, but you don't see. And you have ears, but you're not listening. And with your heart, you don't get the sense of it. So I think that's the big problem. Intellectual honesty. People see things, but they don't want to admit it. I, on the other hand, at 76 years old, I don't mind admitting it. The whole human race is in a jungle of prisons, lies, deception, corruption. It's really too bad. It's really too bad. But if there is a divine presence, if there is a God, if there is some higher power, shall we say, then maybe there might be some hope for us. But if it's just, if we're depending on ourselves to pull ourselves up and to make a better world, it's not going to happen. You only got a handful of people who have that kind of spirituality, intellectual acumen, knowledge and wisdom, and are intellectually honest that could do something. While on the other hand, you got 7 billion people who couldn't care less. They're having their beer parties and drinking their beer and working and slaving away like slaves. And they couldn't care less about anything intelligent, anything dealing with wisdom and knowledge, scientific. People don't care about those kind of things. They're watching television and movies and entertainment and drinking their beer and their wine and whiskey and watching the ball game. The human race really doesn't care about the future. And that's why we don't have one. So that's my answer to your question. Am I optimistic? No, I'm not really optimistic at all. But having said that, there may be one higher in the heavens than we are, who is looking on and might intervene in our destiny and do something to help us as a human race. I'm not talking about Jesus coming back or Buddha being reborn or any human Savior, Messiah coming back to help us. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about something in the heavens that is over all mankind that may change the history and the destiny of the human race. But let me tell you something. If there is a God, and that God is going to do something to save the human race, it's going to be terrible. Because the wickedness and the ignorance, the stupidity, the violence, the criminality of the human family is going to require a horrible situation to turn the human race around. I mean, we read in the Bible that there was a worldwide flood that killed millions. That's what I'm talking about. If you're going to clean up this world, it's going to require some really drastic measures. So I try and do what I can to educate people. I try and do what I can to encourage other people to read and study and question and begin to think on your own and turn off the television, turn off the news. There is no news. Turn off all of the communications and think for yourself and read and study and question everything. That's the only hope I see for us. And not many people are willing to do that. So that's my view.
I'm thinking exactly like you, Jordan Maxwell. I don't put my faith in humanity anymore. I think like you, there will be in the future a divine intervention, or I don't know what, but it will not be human at all.
That's right. That's what I said. If it's going to be any help coming, it will not be from us. And if something divine, implying something from out there, from the heavens, if there's going to be something coming, it's not necessarily going to be good. Because, maybe there's wickedness and evil out there. And it's coming here. Well, we're already wicked and evil enough, unless we got some others who are really wicked and evil, and they're coming here. That idea is not foreign, because Christianity teaches about demons and devils in the last days and the end times and all the dark and evil things which are to happen on the earth. And all of the different religions in the world talk about the poltergeists and God and the demons and ghosts and devils and all that kind of thing. So I'm saying even if there is some kind of an intervention from out there, it may not be good. It may even be worse than what we've got. So I just do the best I can each day to read and study and question everything. But ultimately, my real love, the thing that I really love studying, has always been theology and religion. Because in government and commerce and all the things that we live with every day, I say it all the time, I'm not the world's foremost authority on anything. But I have been looking at theology and religion and the ancient world religions for almost 60 years. I know something about the ancient, prehistoric and ancient religions of the world and how they are impacting us today. We are still today, in the best of times, in the most advanced countries of the world, are still worshiping the same ancient demonic depravity gods coming around 7,000 to 10,000 years ago. But people don't know that. Nobody is studying that. Even people who study religions are not interested to study it from my viewpoint. How does it affect our families? How does it affect your mind? Because even in universities and colleges, when you take comparative religion courses where you look at all the ancient religions, those courses are just academic, just to show you what people believe and what this person believes and what that religion teaches and what this religion teaches. But nobody is talking about how are these things affecting your family and your country and your life and your family's life. And what is actually going on? Is there something else going on this earth that somebody is feeding us all these ancient stories and causing us to continue worshiping these ancient gods? I'm telling you, there is a real story here. If you want to look at the story of theology and religion, it will be shocking to you. What we are doing when we call ourselves Christians, when we call ourselves Jews or Muslims, you have no idea in the world where all of these religions really actually came from. And you trace it back far enough and it's going to be frightening to you. I will guarantee you. That's a whole subject we could spend another 8 shows on just by itself, just religion, and where these religions have really come from. And what you're really doing when you belong to a particular religion. There's so much that is known, but most people are not intellectually honest. They don't want to know the truth. So, and like the Apostle Paul said in the New Testament, have I become your enemy because I tell you the truth? So if you find someone who's telling you the truth, you may hear things you don't want to hear. So that's why I always say, like the Apostle Paul, have I become your enemy because I'm telling you something you don't want to hear? I'm trying to help you to wake up before it's too late. So that's what I do. That's who I am. I'm a teacher, and I'm trying to educate the people who want to know. Now, I know the overwhelming majority are not interested, couldn't care less. But for those few people who really want to know, and for that few people who know that there's something wrong, we're being misled and lied to, and something's gone wrong, where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and religions, people praying to God all day long, while more bloodshed and more wars and more famines and more tragedies are happening. The more we pray to God, the worse things are getting. It's because we don't realize that the gods that we're praying to are ancient pagan gods from thousands of years ago. And most people don't want to hear that. So they'll continue to pray and ask for God's help and ask for God's protection. And the more they pray, the worse our world gets. It's because they don't realize the gods they're praying to are tens of thousands of years old and ancient pagan gods. It's an extraordinary story, and most people, like I said, are intellectually not willing to listen. They don't want to hear the truth. So I just do the best I can. But I always appreciate being on shows like yours, where I'm allowed to at least vent my frustrations and try and help other people to wake up. Because if we don't wake up, we as a human family do not have a very, very nice future coming. So that's what I feel like. That's what my thoughts are right now.
Okay, for an interview with Project Avalon, you said that your soul is extraterrestrial. Do you still believe that in the present time?
You see, the question has been asked for thousands of years. What are we humans? We have always realized that there are 3 parts to being human: mind, body, and spirit. A triune system we call humanity. It's mind, body, and spirit. What we're talking about is that we humans have brains. We have a mind. But all brains look the same. Whether it's male or female, it doesn't matter. If you can line 50 brains up on a table, you cannot tell one brain from another. You can't tell whose brain you're looking at and whose you're not. So you can't tell anything about a person by looking at a brain, because a brain is a brain. Everybody's got one. So that's the mind. Everyone has a body that's alive. And so all male bodies are built the same. All female bodies are built the same. So you can't tell anything about a human by the body. It's just a body and it's just a brain. So who are you then? Because your body is not important and your brain is not important. There is a scientific study that has been published just recently within the past year or so, where multiple universities have done studies on the human brain and what is the human brain. We know it's magnificent, we know it's profoundly important, and it can do wonderful things, but what is the brain for? What is it doing? And they found that the brain is doing only one thing, which was interesting to me when I heard this. They discovered that the brain does only one thing and one thing only. It controls movement. It controls your brain controls your body to move, your arms, your legs, to eat, to run, to play. Your brain controls the body's movement. Period. And therefore it has nothing, your brain has nothing to do with your thoughts, how you view things, how you think, your imagination, your creativity. That is not a part of the brain at all. So we now know that the body is just a body and the brain is just a brain. But what are you personally? Where were you 1,000 years ago? Your personality, who you are, the way you think, the way you maneuver your life each day. That's not your brain. So once you understand that your thoughts, your imagination, your dreams, your intuition, your wisdom, your understanding, that's not your mind. The brain only operates the physical body. It has nothing to do. And so the scientists said, when asked, well, where does all of this creativity for great musicians who create music and other people to do wonderful things in science and sports, etc., and have brilliant ideas for inventions and movies and television and inventing things, where does that come from? And the scientists will tell you, we have no idea. That has nothing to do with your brain, your mind at all, has nothing to do with your body. So that's why we have mind, body, and spirit, which implies that your brilliance and your intelligence and your wisdom and your creativity comes from the spirit world. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Nikola Tesla, who gave us electrical lights and radio. Nikola Tesla was the father who gave us radio. And we're told Marconi. No, Marconi gave us nothing. Marconi stole. Marconi was a young man who asked Nikola Tesla for a job. And Nikola Tesla gave him a job, a young man looking for work. And the great man, Nikola Tesla, gave Marconi a job. And Marconi, when the old man was not in the office and not in the laboratory, Marconi copied many of Nikola Tesla's research and work. And then quietly, like a thief, went and copyrighted all of Nikola Tesla's work and put his name on it. But it was found out what he was doing, and that he was a thief and stealing the great man's work and all of his writings. And so Marconi didn't give us radio. He didn't give us anything. He stole. But Nikola Tesla gave us electricity, radio, radar, all kinds of marvelous things that we could do today. But it was the man Nikola Tesla who gave us all of that wisdom and knowledge. But here's my point. Many years ago in New York City, Nikola Tesla was honored as one of the greatest mathematicians and greatest inventors and scientists the world's ever known. And so the dinner was held for him in New York in a big hotel. And all kinds of famous people from around the world came to honor the great master inventor Nikola Tesla. And after dinner, he got up to address the audience. And Nikola Tesla said, and he was about 85 years old when he was giving this lecture in New York, Nikola Tesla, the father of electricity, television, radio, all the electrical that we have around us today, he gave us. He's the one that invented it. Well, he said in his lecture to the audience in New York at 85 years old, he said that every night when he goes to bed, he leaves a pad and a pen on his night table next to his bed. And he said, each morning when I wake up, the pad is filled with a particular invention. Somebody's writing down an invention and telling me how to do it and the way to do it and what it will do and how it will work and how to build it. And it's all written out. And he said, I just take the pad. I didn't write it. I was sleeping. But it's a whole pad full of design and how to do this, how to build it, what it will do. And he says, so I go to my laboratory every morning and just do what the pad says. I don't know. And it works. It works. And so he lit the world. And he was a brilliant man, extraordinarily bright, wonderful inventor, scientist. But even he said, my greatest inventions were given to me by somebody who's writing on the pad when I'm sleeping. So that's what makes me believe that there's a higher power in the universe that's watching us, and it's using us like a tool. We do the same thing in governments. We use people to do things that we don't want to do ourselves. Governments will use people to accomplish things. Employers use people to do things they don't want to do, but they'll hire someone else to do it. Well, I think that there is some sort of a system that today we call the matrix. I call it some sort of a spiritual presence in the universe that is obviously higher intelligences are watching us. And they are spirits. I don't care what you call them, ghosts, or demons, or angels, or devils, or poltergeists, or jinns. I don't care what you call these entities which you cannot see but are highly intelligent and are here. You just don't see them, but they can see you. And they are leading us. They are giving us knowledge and technology little by little by little. They are giving us information and knowledge. I have heard so many different scientists, astronauts, philosophers talking about this subject in private. So I know what I'm talking about. Scientists around the world know that all of these great strides that we're making in the world today with technology, somebody's giving us that knowledge. We're not that smart. We're not that smart to know. And like Nikola Tesla, one of the most brilliant men the world has ever given us, even he said, I wake up in the morning and it's all written down for me. I just follow what's written down and I light up the city. I invent radio. I didn't invent anything. It told me how to do it. So somebody is leading us. And that leads me to believe that somebody else in the universe, far wiser than we are watching us, and they are leading us in our evolution, or actually the better word would be intervention. They're intervening and bringing you along and giving you knowledge and giving you ideas and concepts and belief systems, and they're leading you to believe something or leading you to invent something. That's why we say of famous painters and famous artists, we say they were inspired. Michelangelo with his carvings in the Vatican was just obviously inspired. What are you talking about, inspired? Inspired means to breathe. And so inspire means someone is breathing into you ideas. They're giving you something. It's like breathing. They're breathing into you. They're inspiring. Or if there's a bunch of you sitting around a table quietly and you're all breathing together, that's called to conspire. So the bottom line is, I think the human family is now, as it always has been, being led and being given technology. Little by little by little, we're being given technology, and we think we're so incredibly smart. We're not very smart at all. Somebody is playing with us from out there. And there's no doubt in my mind whatsoever that there is, in point of fact, extraterrestrial life on this earth. They're called by our government, the United States government calls them EBs, spelled E-B-E. E-B-E. Extraterrestrial biological entities. E-B-E. Extraterrestrial biological entities. Who are they? We know that there are some alive today on the earth that are not from here. They're not coming from our earth. They've come from somewhere and they're alive today. And the military industrial complex has them. I'm just not very excited about the possibility of the human family on the earth, because I know how much the world does not know. And most people are ignorant, ill-informed, and they have been made that way. Their government makes them stupid. Bertrand Russell, the British philosopher and author and philosopher Bertrand Russell, he said an interesting quote. He said, when humans are born, they're born ignorant, but you have to go to school to be stupid. And so yeah. Today, when you're born, a child is not stupid. Children have beautiful minds and they're thinking about everything. They're questioning everything. If you just leave them alone and help them, encourage them to be scientists, encourage them to think and question everything, the child will grow up to be a brilliant scientist or philosophers or writers or do some wonderful thing for the human race, because that's what we humans are like. We have a potential to be great and spiritually great for our fellow man. But too many adults kill that desire in children. You just go to school. You go to school and learn how to drink your beer and play your ball game and go out and play games at the ball game and the football and the basketball and soccer ball and ping pong ball and bowling ball, and go play your ball games. Don't think about nothing. Just keep your mouth shut and go out and play your games. And so, with that kind of mentality running the world, today we have a world of mankind lost. Nobody seems to know from nothing. They don't know what's going on. Nobody knows how to fix anything. Nobody understands how a bank works, what military is, why we have police. Nobody seems to know how anything works. Why? Because we're purposely ignorant. We don't want to know. So what I'm saying is, what I'm trying to do is educate people. And if it wasn't for the likes of people like you who have programs who want to know, because that's the big problem. Most people don't want to know. So I'm here for the people who want to know. And I can tell you, there's a world of knowledge you've never been told before about the world you live in. So that's it.
Jordan Maxwell, we speak a lot today about transhumanism. Is this a threat for humanity, or maybe a trick to change the human genome?
Yes. We are being scientifically changed right now. There is a movement, there is a vast movement in the world, very high up in scientific circles, that is planning on changing the human race. We know that we have something called genetically modified foods, GMOs, genetically modified foods. And we're told to watch out for the genetically modified foods because they're very dangerous, because they affect your body and they affect your hormones. They affect everything in you because they're artificial. They're not normal. It's artificially genetically modified. But what you're not being told is that the idea for genetically modifying food is part of something bigger. And that is to the scientific community is working on how to genetically modify human beings, how to genetically modify us so that we can eat genetically modified foods. It's an extraordinarily frightening story about what is happening to us by people who are scientists who are being paid by governments, paid by wealthy financiers to play with us humans, and to recreate the human race to be something totally different than what we are today. And that's why you're seeing so much today, young people who have no respect for anything. They have no care. They don't show any compassion, no love, no concern for their fellow man. Too many young people are roaming the streets on drugs with violence and gangs and could not care less about all the important things that the human family needs, like government and respect for authority, etc., etc. It's because the whole human race is being redesigned scientifically. Something is happening to us as humans. Most people have no idea in the world of what I'm talking about. But let me tell you, 100 years from now, the world is not going to be like you think it is today. We're not going to have the same kind of humans on the earth as we do today. If you can see what we were like back in the 1700s and the 18 and 1900s, when families always cared for their grandfather, the grandmother, they always cared for their children, and people cared for each other, and it was always a very human society, and people loved and cared for each other, and families were very important. Today, families are not important. Today, you can have children, you don't have to have a family. And little by little, we are losing ground on being human and caring about human things. Purposely, little by little by little, we are being propagandized into seeing ourselves as workers. All we know how to do is just go to work and do your job and pay your bills and drink your beer and be entertained and watch your movies and go entertain yourself. But the normal human creature, the normal human, knows there's something wrong, that they're not fulfilling their feeling for life. There's something dirty and wrong going on the earth. And that's why so many people, so many grown people, adults are turning to alcoholism. Young kids are turning to drugs. People are turning to entertainments. And from there you get into corruption, corrupt entertainments, alcohol, drugs, violence. And little by little you get into wars and hatreds. Why? Because the human family on the earth does not have the spiritual grounding that it needs to grow as humans. We don't even know what spirituality is. We don't even know what the word spirituality means. The best we can come up with something called religion. That's not spirituality. Spirituality is an individual sitting and thinking deeply about your family, about your children, about your mother, about your family, and about your country and your friends and your family. And who are we, and where did we come from, and how do we protect ourselves, and how do we protect the older people and the children? We're not able to do any of that. We're not able to protect ourselves, much less our family. Again, we don't have the power to change anything because knowledge is power, and the people have no knowledge. And so that's why, again, I go back to and say I don't have much of a hope for the human family because too many people do not want to know the truth. They're not interested. But for those few people in the audience, because I know in every audience there are going to be some who are very, very legitimately concerned about truth, and they want to know what's going on. Well, for those people who are really legitimately and de jure wanting to know what is going on in the world and where we've come from and where we're going, that's what I make myself available for. I have a website called Jordan Maxwell Show. That's Jordan, like the River Jordan, Maxwell, Maxwell, Jordan Maxwell Show.com. And on that Jordan Maxwell Show.com, which is a podcast, just a small podcast, where I do a lot of little radio shows and people can listen to them all for free. But there's also another website that I have connected to my original Jordan Maxwell Show. And that, if you go on that Jordan Maxwell Show, you will see that there is a banner that says to join a research society website. I have put a research society website on the Jordan Maxwell Show. You can join that research society, and what it is just another website, but it has all of my research from over the years. It's huge right now, but it's going to get a lot bigger because I have not had the time or the knowledge or the expertise to do what I really want to do. But now I have professional people who have come in to help me. And so now I am putting all kinds of hidden knowledge, all sorts of hidden wisdom, videos, audios, articles, books, free ebooks, all kinds of people that you need to know about, articles about things you've never heard before. It's a whole research center. What I want to do is to create a vast, magnificent basis for all the occult or hidden knowledge of the world. But you have to start with my website, Jordan Maxwell Show, and then join my research society. It's right there on the home page. So again, I want to thank you for having me on, because if it were not for people like you and programs like yours, most people would never even know who I am. I've been doing this. I've been doing what I do, talking to audiences and talking about knowledge and wisdom and teaching people. I started back in 1959. That's 56 years ago. I am 76 now, but this was 56 years ago. I was talking and going around to bookstores and small little venues and talking to people, trying to get them to wake up and ask questions. So that's why I do what I do, because that's given to me to do. Maybe God has given it to me, I don't know, but that's who I am, that's what I do, and that's what I've always done. And that's what I enjoy doing now, is talking to people who want to know. And again, I want to thank you for having me on the program. This is the 6th time we've been on. So, but I thank you again.
Jordan Maxwell, once more, thank you so much for your generosity, and I'm very pleased by the the fact that it's the first time I see you on webcam. You look great, Jordan. Don't be ashamed.
Oh, I'm not. I'm not very photogenic. I'm not very handsome. I don't expect to be at 76 years old. But what I do bring to the table is not my brilliance. I'm not the world's foremost authority on anything. I'm very smart enough to know how much I don't know. I know how much I don't know. So I'm not an authority on anything. But what I do hope to do, and what I bring to the table, so to speak, is all of my experiences in life. I've traveled all over the world. I've talked to scientists and physicists and philosophers and politicians and royalty. I've sat and talked with royalty, with kings and princes and princesses and politicians at the very top of America's political establishment, and secret societies and religious institutions and governmental figures and astronauts. I've been all over the world. I've talked to so many people about strange things that most people don't even know exist. And that's what I want to bring to the world. I want to bring knowledge that most people do not even know exists. And believe me, I've been doing it for 56 years. I haven't even scraped the surface tonight of what's really out there, how banks really work. Who are the police department? Why do you call them police? Why do you have banking? Why do you have school? Where did that word come from? Once you begin to break down words and terms and the etymology of words and find out where things have come from and how far back your religions really go and the basis for your beliefs and what you believe, you will be absolutely startled to find out how much you didn't know. And that's why somebody said a long time ago that that insanity is doing the same things over and over and over each day, but expecting a different result. So if we continue to worship the same old ancient religions and gods that we have been for thousands of years, if we're continually crawling on our knees and playing like fools, believing our politicians and believing the government, and hoping that the government will do this and hoping that the government will do that, if you're going to continue to believe and hope and pray to gods, the ancient pagan gods, and never, ever wake up to find out what the world really is, where it's come from, who you are, and where you're going when you leave here. The world is a very dark place, and I'm trying my best to shed a little light in a world of darkness. So like I've always said, and I try to say every time, I am not the world's foremost authority on anything. I am just an ordinary man pursuing extraordinary knowledge. I want to thank you for being on your show too. Yeah. I would love to. We'll have to start a whole new session of shows, yeah, because there's so much I would like to, specifically talk about. If we want to get into religion, that's my favorite subject is religion. where did the religions of this world really come from? Where do they really come from? And what is the words that are used in different religions? What do they mean? It's a really interesting subject, and so we could always do that later on too. So we can talk about government too.
See you next time for another interview, Jordan. Have a good night, and
you too.
You too.
And we will talk. We will talk again. And again, go to my website, Jordan Maxwell Show, and join my research society. Join my research website, in which I have all my books and videos and audios and articles and people that's important people that you don't know about. I have them on my website, people you should know about, places that you need to know, things you need to understand about the world you live in. Again, go to Jordan Maxwell Show and join my research website. And I want to thank you again. Let's do it again another time.